Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Crawley Borough Council's Climate Change Scrutiny Panel meeting of the 12th of October 2020. Welcome to members of the press and the public watching this meeting live. I am Councillor Kim Jaggard, Chair of the panel. This meeting is being held in public and is not a public meeting. The public and press can still hear and see the meeting, but there will be no public question time at any scrutiny panel meeting. Should any voting be required at this meeting, this will be held via a recorded vote taken by the Democratic Services team member on behalf of the Chair. The exceptions to this are the approving of the minutes from the previous meeting or any other procedural item where the item's sole recommendation to the panel is to note the report. For those items, the Chair will move the item and then it will be presumed agreed unless a dissenting comment from any committee member is made. Before I invite the members of the scrutiny panel to confirm their attendance, I ask that they please ensure their mobile phones are switched off or are on silent, their backgrounds are blurred or set to a nondescript background, and they are aware of their surroundings so that they are not disturbed during the meeting. This includes please making sure that all TVs, radio, smart speakers are switched off. Committee members are reminded that they should have their microphones turned off unless speaking, and their cameras turned off unless they are requesting to speak. When asked to speak, please then turn your camera on, unmute yourselves, and pause for 3 seconds to allow for the slight delay in connection. Can I now ask the lead officers supporting the panel on the climate emergency to introduce themselves, giving their name and job title, and I will start with the head of the economy and planning.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Clem Smith and I'm the head of economy and planning for Crawley Borough Council.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Louise Skipton-Carter and I'm the Sustainability Manager.
Good evening, I'm Heather Girling, I'm Democratic Services Officer, and I'd just like to confirm we've had no apologies, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. We will now be taking committee member introductions together with items 2 and 3. So may I ask committee members, when called, to confirm their name, the ward they represent, if they have any disclosures of interest to make, if they have any whipping declarations, and if they agree to the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of September 2020.
We will start with Councillor Hart. Councillor Hart, can you turn your camera on, please?
Hello, I'm Councillor Julie Hart, Councillor for Ifield and Ifield West. I've got no disclosures of interest, I've got no whipping declarations, and I can't comment on the minutes because I sent in my apologies for absence.
Councillor Jaggard.
Thank you. I'm Councillor Kim Jaggard from Maidenbower. I have no disclosures of interest to make, no whipping declarations, and I agree the minutes of the last meeting on the 10th of September 2020.
Councillor Lunnan, please.
Hello, I'm Councillor Tim Lunnan. I'm the Councillor for Broadfield. I have no disclosures of interest, no whipping, and I approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
And Councillor Pendington, please.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Alison Pendington, Council South and Worth. I have no disclosures of interest or whipping declarations, and I'm happy to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
And just for public record, Chair, we also have Councillor Irvine present for the meeting.
Thank you. So the panel agrees that the minutes of the Climate Change Scrutiny Panel held on the 10th of September 2020 are an accurate record of that meeting. So we now move on to item 4 of the agenda, the witness sessions. We have invited various guests tonight to assist the panel in their views from a strategic perspective on the residential and domestic properties, achieving a low carbon footprint, and to understand the challenges and services faced now and in the future. To assist the panel, I would like to welcome Karen Dodds, Head of Crawley Homes at Crawley Borough Council, Russell Allison, Housing Enabler and Development Manager at Crawley Borough Council, Alan Moore, Mechanical and Electrical Surveyor from Crawley Borough Council, and of course Councillor Ian Irvine, the Cabinet Member for Housing. Perhaps if I could ask Karen Dodds, as Head of Crawley Homes, to introduce and provide us with a short update, please. And we have the report which was provided on the agenda, so I thank the officers for compiling this. So over to you, Karen.
Thank you, Chair. Just to give a broad outline from what we've put in the report, we're talking about what we can do with the council housing stock, obviously, and Russell will address any questions relating to housing association new build stock. Obviously, we can't, generally speaking, talk about the private sector stock because that's outside of our area of expertise, but we are going to talk about what we're trying to do. The government's target of having carbon neutral homes by 2050 is obviously one we've been working towards for some time. We've also previously been addressing aspects around fuel poverty. So we've had a programme of insulation, loft insulation, cavity wall insulation for quite a long time. And in 2012, we participated in what the government ran as a retrofit for the future competition. Well, it was a big bid, and the point of that was to try as many new technologies as possible in a way of trying to reduce the energy output of homes. What we knew from that is that something obviously worked a lot better than others. So we've tried to structure our report very much in how we're addressing the what we need to do about our existing stock, what can be significantly improved in terms of carbon zero, and what we're doing with our new build stock, where we've actually kind of demonstrated a different approach for different types of property. So we've had the passive house properties developed. We've got other properties which are now going to be network ready for the district heat network, and we've got other ones which have just got a fabric first approach with other technology around them. So we are looking at and evaluating all of those and trying to decide what our best approach needs to be to make sure that those new homes are energy proofed. We've got various things which we're looking at about the retrofitting, but we also know, which we've referenced in the report, that some of our stock is very poor in terms of its energy efficiency. So, and we've not got huge numbers of stock, but where it is, it's concentrated. And our approach there is what we're looking at currently is potential regeneration of some of those estates, whereby we will propose what we think would be the best approach, which may be demolition and rebuild. We're not really there yet. We're still doing quite a lot of evaluation of that. But just in terms of that, our broad approach, these are the things that we're looking at. We've referenced things like the energy sprung approach, which is a Dutch method, and we're very keen to try that, which is a whole house insulation. Some of the other retrofit aspects that we can do and developments will be bringing some of the properties up to almost passive house standards, so that we've got that. And one of the things that we're also trying to evaluate from residents is how they live in some of those properties and what's a benefit to them. And Alan can probably talk more about that, because he's talked to quite a lot of residents about how you use some of the new technology that we've been putting in homes. So just as an introduction to the report, that's really all I wanted to say. It's just really whether the from the report whether there are any particular questions that the panel would like to address.
Thank you for the update, and I'm sure that there will be lots of questions from committee members. So each committee member will have the opportunity to speak. So as always, you indicate by turning your camera on. Then when you're called to speak, unmute your microphone, wait for a few seconds for the delay. Once you have spoken, please ensure that your camera is off and that you mute your microphone. All committee members who have indicated will be called upon to ask their questions. And officers, if you leave your cameras on during this session and answer questions, that makes it easier. And Councillor Irvine, if you wish to comment at any point, if you'd like to turn your camera on as well. And so I'm looking for any questions from any of the committee members, please.
Tim.
Yep, Councillor Lennon.
Thank you. I'll just go with the starter question because I have quite a lot, but I'm hoping this will open up quite a lot of discussion. Smart meters, from what I can read in the report, we only take action on void properties. What do we do? Presumably, there's a couple of questions that I've assumed here, so I'll just check them. Presumably, we can't go in and sort of forcibly get all our tenants to take on sort of a new smart meter. So then the question is, what are we doing to try and encourage them to take up smart meters? Obviously, all the British Gas and all the other suppliers are trying to do it all the time, but sort of smart meters are seen as a big holy grail, although they don't in themselves necessarily save energy, but they can be used in conjunction with lots of other things to save energy. So how are we pushing the smart meter movement? Because I think at the moment, my interpretation is it's likely to miss the government target of whenever it is that they're all supposed to be done by. And obviously, I think it'd be slightly embarrassing if Crawley Homes Borough Council stock was not all done by the government target date. So that's my starting salvo.
Okay, who wishes to take that one? Alan? Alan? Alan, you're now live.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Alan, the mechanical, electrical and energy efficiency surveyor. With regards to smart meters, the type 2s that are what we would really like to fit in every house. There is a mass shortage in the country at the moment, and our only chance for installing them is at void at present, which we have been trying to do with Robin Hood Energy, but we are now doing with British Gas. Apart from that, it's just a case of getting the tenants to apply themselves, or if a house is on the district heat network, they immediately have their own smart meters, which is the equivalent, if not better, than the type 2 smart meters. So it tells them how much they've used, the costs, how warm their house is, how much they've got in their account and things like that. So I'm definitely pushing that style of meters for tenants, which is easy to use. And John Brackpool Court, which was our first district heat network, using those meters has been a success with no complaints and tenants being able to use them, if that helps.
Councillor Lennon.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question is, can we, we obviously can't force people to take them up, but are we doing something in conjunction, sort of reminding them and letting residents know the benefits? Because obviously when they receive stuff from British Gas or whoever their energy or gas supplier is, they might not see them as a trusted source and might think that actually they're trying to do it for the company's benefit. And if we're saying to them, actually, no, this really is for your benefit as well, they might be more inclined to try and book and take up an appointment. And do we actually track, do residents have to let us know that they've done it? And then do we track how many homes of our stock have got smart meters?
Okay, Alan.
Unfortunately, we can't use any of the data from the smart meters, so it's purely down to the tenant and their provider whether they have a smart meter or not. So the actual installation of it is not is only a benefit for the tenant to know their energy usage. If we ever get people, I get people put forward for the LEAP so we can check what type of rate they're on, if it's excessive, and we normally ask those to update their meters at the same time.
Councillor Allen, do you want to come back with another question?
Not on smart meters. I think I'll let somebody else ask a question and I'll come back on some other stuff later.
Is there any other councillor who would like to ask a question?
We have Councillor Pennington.
Okay, Councillor Pennington.
Apologies if I'm going slightly off topic. Thank you, by the way, Chair. Apologies if I'm going slightly off topic on the report. My question is about charging points for electric vehicles and whether there would be any way. It comes really from what's happened at Forge Wood, because obviously there's nothing in the plan for them to be any. So kind of what plans would there be for future developments, or if we're looking to demolish and rebuild to try and get that, or to encourage. Sorry, it's a lot of questions in one. In terms of encouraging the developer to put them in, or whether we would put them in, could they be installed? Are they likely to be retrofitted anywhere where they haven't been to this point? Because obviously trying to help people move to electric vehicles will be quite important in tackling carbon emissions moving forward.
Sharon, do you want to take that one?
Yes, this is one of the things which we're currently looking at in terms of our review of our new build specification, which is referenced in the report. So whether or not we include as part of our requirement electric charging points. We'll also look at that if we do a regeneration of an estate. It's obviously quite often outside of our remit on existing estates. So parking is quite often not actually Crawley Homes responsibility. So those things are probably more better addressed in terms of the overall transport policy and how that is addressed. The only other thing that I kind of say is that quite a number of the developments which we're looking at come with very restricted parking now, especially some of the town centre developments. So we're also looking at how that could be catered for in terms of car clubs, those sort of things. So when we're looking and reviewing whether or not we've got an interest in a particular site, especially the town centre ones, is that's what we're looking for. And we will also be looking at electric charging points within them, because obviously that is something that we are going to have to cater for. I don't know if Alan might have something more.
Yeah, Alan, you're live. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we've got some new developments where we're looking at installing a possibility of EV charging points to them, but the houses have to have, of course, their own drive. We couldn't have any trailing cables across, pedestrian crosses or pathways at all. Technology has also been really changing with regards EV charging points, so they have now become easier to install and cheaper, and there's sort of one type that is coming to the top of the market. So we wanted to be sure that we were installing the correct type that would be long lasting across hopefully across the whole of Crawley in our developments.
Thank you.
Is any other questions from any other councillor? Tim.
Yeah, I'm back. So this barrage of questions is on insulation. Sort of, I think the rest of the plans look good, but obviously, as you said, we have got a large stock, so we need to make sure as many of our existing tenants sort of don't live in fuel poverty, which is a big concern, especially going forward. And obviously, I understand this is, I guess the first question is, when do you think a decision will be made on regeneration? For want of that's a very simple question that might have a very complex answer, but obviously you can't really make a economic decision on insulation unless you know for certain whether you're regenerating or just making do. So I guess then the question is on making do, reading what we're doing is we're just doing the bare minimum, I think would be a reasonable description. That might be because that's all we can afford to do on the Crawley Homes budget. But obviously, insulation is the easiest way to get people out of fuel poverty and make us more fuel efficient and more carbon friendly. So it's obviously something we really want to, push quite strongly. So is there a reason we're not, I'm just reading the term ongoing cavity filter properties identified as most in need, rather than sort of saying we've got an active programme going around getting through all of them and we'll be finished by the time we get to, 2021. And then similarly with external wall insulation and loft insulation, we must know the types of properties that really do need loft insulation and external wall insulation by now. So is there any more we can do to sort of speed those up, and is there any money sources we can tap? Lots of questions there on insulation.
Karen, do you want to take that one?
Yes.
Just sent me live.
So historically, we did a significant amount of programme around loft insulation, cavity wall insulation, so that we had all of those properties done to a particular standard at the time. What we're now doing is picking up somewhere actually we couldn't get access, people didn't want it done, or we've been, they were one of a very old historic programme for loft insulation, and we're now installing a much deeper level of loft insulation. We've also got properties where there are flats where cavity wall insulation hasn't been put in because at the time those grants that were available were for tenants only, so leaseholders had to pay. So unless they agreed to pay in their service charges, that was something which sort of prevented some of that happening in some of those properties. And that still is a difficulty, because if we have to do it on a programme works and we pay for the cost of that work rather than it being grant funded, then that becomes a charge to leaseholders. And that is a big problem also when we start talking about regeneration, but I'll come back to that when we're talking about flats. So what we are doing, and the big programme that we've got going now, and this isn't really about making do, this is actually about significantly improving the energy performance of particular properties where cavity wall insulation hasn't been appropriate, is the external wall insulation programme, which we've been doing now for this, we're in the third year, I think, of this programme. And that is obviously has significant benefits for those properties because they're wrapped externally. But again, it's the type, it's either the houses or it's the two-storey flats where it's in a row on some of those ones. But again, becomes a problem when we're talking about flats where we may have leaseholders, because this isn't cheap. So it's at least £10,000 per property. So we're not talking about minimal amounts of money going into it. It's actually quite a lot. Well, if that's for a leaseholder, then clearly that's a big bill. And one of the things which obviously we've referenced in the report is the energy sprung system, which I alluded to at the beginning, which is actually a whole house wrap. So it's walls, roofs, windows, and it all comes as a package. So it's produced elsewhere, brought to site, wrapped around the property. But that is in the cost of £80,000 per unit. So again, that is cost effective, because if we did all of those things separately, it would cost that amount. It's just that we would be doing it all in one go. And we have ambition to do that, because that is the best, most effective way of actually improving these properties the way that we want to improve them. But again, when it comes to flats, £80,000 is a huge bill for any leaseholder. And then that becomes what we've got to plan for when we're talking about our flattered stock. So we have to have something in place which says to leaseholders how they're going to either manage that approach, which is the whole house retrofit or whole flattered estate retrofit, or what's going to happen to them should we kind of say, actually, it's not even worth starting with these ones, they need to go. But they happen to be leaseholders where the responsibility is slightly different. We still have a responsibility, obviously, if we're intending to demolish their properties, but it works slightly differently because we would be agreeing a market value for the properties, obviously a home loss, all of those things. Is quite so. The cost to the council is very specific about what we would have to bear, but still for the leaseholders, it's a source of some concern, because by the time we're talking about the types of properties where you can't actually properly retrofit them to a decent standard, you are talking about something, once we say that, actually the market value becomes quite low, and already they might be some of the lower priced properties within Crawley. So we have to have a whole raft of things in place before we start specifically talking about regeneration of this estate or that estate.
Councillor Allen, do you want to come back?
No, I think that was quite a good answer. I think maybe what's missing is that answer in a written format, so we can, and maybe it is a Crawley Borough Council policy somewhere that does summarise what we're doing on reinsulating homes, because just in this report we're sort of picking out from different places and doesn't necessarily detail just how much we are spending on sort of trying to improve the insulation of our homes. So it sounds like we're actually doing a lot of good work. It's just not captured anywhere that's easy to see. So well done. And then I have one other question on air pumps. It sounds like we have done one air cooled pump, air source heat pump even, there we go. We've done it in one place. It's not mentioned in the future stuff, so what's our thinking on the future on air source heat pumps? Is it not a successful trial? Because from what I understand, from what I read, they're looking like they might be the future depending on the type of property. They're easier to install than water source heat pumps, as you've referenced, because you don't have to go to the Environment Agency. So what's our plans with air source heat pumps?
Yeah, Alan, you're live.
You may have read on there about the Net Zero Collective, where we're using data and information from our older houses, our older stock, with regards air source heat pumps or ground source heat pumps or district heat networks. We would hate to get it wrong. Air source heat pumps do on occasion are not what you might call one fit for all to fit. So we look at the whole house approach. There would be no point fitting an air source heat pump to a house, for instance, it was 1958 and was full of leaks. So we would have to look at data which to say we could insulate it, put PV on the roof to also help the air source heat pump, and possibly use battery storage as well. That's the whole idea of the Net Zero Collective, where we look at the best fit for the best age or type of build of the house. And across Crawley, we've got so many different types. We've picked 12, which are all different style of houses to be in the programme. So an air source heat pump may be the best option, for instance, a timber framed, well insulated house in Broadfield, but not a 1958 tailgate type kind of brick terraced house.
Was Karen indicating then?
Okay.
Yes, Karen would like to comment.
Yes, thank you. I think it is, as Alan says, it's really important that we make the right decisions, but we've also got in there what we're planning to do about replacing gas boilers, because obviously at the moment we spend, we do spend a lot of money in terms of very efficient replacement of boilers. So we put the best type of boiler in terms of its efficiency, in terms of its cost of running, etc., etc. But we are looking at what do we do. And obviously Alan's talking about, well, you need bigger radiators, you need bigger bore piping, etc., to efficiently run the air source heat pumps. And at the moment we've got one property, and yes, it's very limited. But the point of being in the Net Zero Collective is that we actually share data with other organisations firms, other housing associations, local authorities, so that we put all of that information together and we start looking at a bigger set of data as opposed to just our own. So they are obviously something that we want to, as Anne said, we want to make the right decision. We know the technology's out there, and the technology has moved on very rapidly in recent years. So if we looked at ground source heat pumps, there are ways of doing huge arrays for blocks of flats, but then you've got to go very deep in terms of the ground that you're putting them into and how you actually run that. So it's a great big operation, and again, very expensive, and we have to be looking at some of that technology and also thinking again about if we moved a big block of flats onto that type of technology, again, how much does that cost in terms of leaseholders? So we have to be making the right decision for people, because then this will be the way forward. So there's lots of complications around it, but we have an ambition to be moving away from gas boilers by 2025.
Thank you. Any other councillor questions? Tim again. I've got some too, so we have Tim.
That's okay, this is my last one. I mean, I think we're doing a lot of good stuff. What would be really good, and the appendix does sort of hint towards it, but maybe we need to make it into a new user-friendly format, is what most people sort of typically see when they talk about energy performance is they're probably imagining what they get for their homes. For an EPC, you get one that ticks off saying, this is where you are, this is what our rating is, and this is what you could do to make it better. In effect, that's what the report is. But I guess what is not so clear, and I guess we're waiting on the answers from the Net Zero Collective, from the way you're talking about it and the way it's described, we're waiting on the answers from the Net Zero Collective to really nail down, this is what we think the best options are for the different areas, different types of housing. And then once we've got those answers, we'll actually have a sort of a pathway forward, funds pending. Obviously, if we had unlimited money, we'd be able to make a lot of things very, carbon neutral and heat effective. So, but is that the general strategy? Is we're hoping to get, and then the question is, when will we get some more data back from this Net Zero Collective to put forward our whole strategy around getting as carbon neutral as we can with the money that we do have, and then also looking at what funds are available that we can tap into. And that's my last question, so you can ignore me after this.
Who's going to take that one? Alan, you're now live. Thank you.
Hi again. So the Net Zero Collective has actually started recently. We've had volunteer tenants who are as keen as I am to become net zero. We've itemised 12 properties that are about to have their first survey and monitoring equipment fitted, and then we're going to monitor those for 6 months. So after the 6 months period, we should get the data back from Southampton University with regards what we think might be the best fit, and we can do the 10 as a trial fit, and then post trial fit we'll have another 6 months to make sure that the actual what we fitted is efficient, not going to cause any fuel poverty, and is doing exactly what we wanted. So I would hope that next year by the summer we'd have some retrofits and we're getting some data back on how it's performing.
Sorry, I know you said you could ignore me, but then what do we do with that? So the follow-up is, what do we do with that data once we have found it to be successful for the first 10? What do we then do with that? Do we just go, well, hey, we've had a successful trial, or does that feed into a bigger policy?
Yep. So if I've got a very small blueprint of all the different types of homes in Crawley, I could put that forward to Crawley Homes as a plan for efficiency across the board. We have also looked at the possibility, because it would be such a large project, of going to Crawley College to train local personnel in the fitment of those energy efficiency equipment. People who've lost their jobs maybe can go back to the college and retrain. It would be a large project, but it would need financing, of course.
Thank you. Any other councillor? Ali, you had your light on a bit. No? Okay, I'm going to ask.
Sorry, I was going to ask about the timescale for the Net Zero Collective as well, but Tim beat me to it.
No, that's fine. Yeah, Tim has managed to grab quite a number of my questions too. Never mind. The thing I was going to ask is, you talked about the I forgot what you called it, covering of the flats and making them more efficient. That I understand completely, and it would be very expensive for leaseholders to bear that cost. But the same really happens to the actual houses that have been sold off on a freehold basis. And at planning, we've had a couple of things a while back now, where you had a terrace and maybe 2 houses in that terrace were Crawley Homes and were clad effectively in energy efficient insulation, but the other 3 weren't. And I wondered how that works, and whether we actually try to influence those freeholders in taking out maybe a reduced cost or a package to make the entire terrace, because to me, covering the entire terrace with the insulation must make it more energy efficient as a whole, as opposed just to the 2 Crawley homes that are clad. And I wondered if we are able to influence freeholders to take up these, which sound really good, these energy efficient things that we are doing for the Crawley home tenants. That's my first one. Is it somebody who would like to answer that?
Yeah, I will.
Karen, thank you.
Yes, well, to date, we haven't actually done a great deal about trying to influence the private homeowners. Our detailing is obviously what you've seen at planning, because it requires a proper detail in order to finish off our property and make it look right. And we can do that reasonably efficiently and make sure that our external wall insulation is doing what it needs to do for our property. And obviously our funding is for Crawley Homes properties. It is ring fenced and it has to be used for council tenants and not other properties. Now, there are wider schemes, and certainly people have been made aware of some of those things. Louise may be able to talk more about some of this, where things like the solar panels have been, solar PV has been made available to people, and everybody can apply for those through that grant funding. So it's a wider question than I think that we're able to address.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, I appreciate it. It's the funding issue. It's just, to me, the whole bill. If a whole block is insulated, it makes it more efficient. But that's absolutely. The other thing I was going to ask you is about cavity wall insulation, and I know it's referenced in the report several times, and I've read such horror stories about it, and I wasn't even sure that it was a good thing to do. And is it because our properties are so poorly insulated that it is a good thing to do? Because I'd had, as I say, negative reports on cavity wall insulation, making it damp and all sorts of other things. I was just a bit concerned that we were putting in cavity wall insulation that may actually prove to bring up other problems once it's in.
Yep.
Come to me.
Yep. Yep, Cam, you're live.
Okay. Well, cavity wall insulation it obviously works if, in fact, the walls are sealed. I think where you will have people talking about damp is where the external envelope has failed in some way, and then the insulation gets damp because the wall is porous. That leads obviously to damp coming into the property, and we have had a small number of those where what's needed is we have to repoint the whole external envelope, but then we refill, but we've pumped out wet insulation. Now, Alan may be able to talk a bit more about the technical aspect of this, but I understand that there's a different type of wall cavity insulation now, which is more resistant to becoming waterlogged and then causing the damp problem.
Thank you. Right. My last question on this is about UPVC windows, because again at planning we had a whole load of Crawley Homes were having their windows taken out, and obviously double glazing is really efficient and a really good thing to have, but I am concerned about the environmental impact of UPVC, because it's completely not recyclable in itself. It's also very uses up a huge amount of chemicals, chlorine particularly, which is very bad for the environment. And I just wondered whether you had any thoughts on whether UPVC is the way forward, or whether there are alternatives that actually are better for the environment. Or is it a cost, just, you know, is it a cost thing mainly is our concern?
And who wants to take that one?
Well, I will, unless Alan wants to. Well, yes, I mean, the specification that we've had for a long time has been UPVC because it performs obviously very, very well and is relatively cost effective. So it has been for a number of years a preferred solution, but it is obviously something that we do need to look at and say, well, is this the best approach going forward? And that'll be something that we review on an ongoing basis as part of our specification reviews, which are obviously something that we do regularly. And we have had other examples where we haven't just put UPVC in, but it's been for particular reasons, and it has meant that the cost is much higher. So again, it's that balance between our budgets, what we can afford and achieve, as against and also, you know, also thinking about the value for money for tenants and leaseholders with the resulting bills, and then what is the, you know, the balance in terms of the environmental concerns, because obviously the UPVC windows themselves last a very long time without maintenance, so hence why they've been so popular.
Yeah, I can completely understand the cost implications of not using them, because they are obviously so cheap nowadays and energy efficient. So I can actually really appreciate what you're saying on that. Are there any other questions from any other councillors? Looks like Tim.
Yes, sorry, I know you said you could ignore me. One more question, which just came to mind. Can we make in any way use of the current government programme that sees residents able to sort of claim up to £5,000 in a voucher for carbon neutral home improvements, is my understanding. I haven't looked into the exact details of it. Are we able to sort of get our tenants to apply en masse and then provide the quotas Crawley Homes for the work? I think not, but I'm sure you can tell me in detail.
I'm afraid the one that's currently out is for owners only. We just recently missed out on a one for the government for councils by a couple of months, but you had to have a project in place. And if I time it right with my net zero collective data and the fitting thereof, there may be another one. They may extend the green homes for councils again. It was mentioned there is currently a green homes training grant that we can apply for, but we can't get use of the private green homes grant, I'm afraid.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other councillor? No. Well, I'd like to thank Russell and Karen and Alan for a really comprehensive report, and really some very interesting. I was particularly interested in the heat pumping thing at Schaefer House, because obviously that's in my ward, and also the other things on there. So really thank you very much for the report and your contributions tonight. They will inform our recommendations going forward, and I move that we note the report and acknowledge the update that has been provided. Is that collectively agreed by the members of the panel?
Yeah.
Yep.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Agreed.
thank you. Thank you. I'd like to note also at this moment, Councillor Peter Smith has joined us, Councillor for the Planning and Economic Development. So welcome, Councillor Smith. Councillor Irvine, do you have anything to add to the report? Anything you'd like to add this evening?
No, just to say that thank you for inviting me along. I found it very interesting. Thanks for the questions, and I really do sincerely look forward to your report and your recommendations, because climate change is something which I personally have got a great interest in, and I hope that Crawley Homes can do its bit to counter the effects of climate change as far as possible. So thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ian. And I would like to thank everybody for joining us tonight for those contributions, and that we will be putting some recommendations forward and doing a report. So thank you. And we now move on to general updates, because apparently there's lots of updates. So I would like to invite Louise Skipton Carter, Sustainability Manager, and Clem Smith, Head of Economic, I can't say that word tonight, Economy and Planning, to update us on various projects and initiatives that we have some information on. Thank you.
Hello, thank you, Chair. I've got just a couple of slides to share that have just some bullet points on that I can talk over and actually give some more information on some updates and some information on some of the schemes that we currently support and or run for residents that are sort of homeowners. So some of them have already been mentioned. So I'll just hopefully share my presentation with you. Some of the current programs that we're actually running, because I know that you, the panel, had been asking questions about how we could actually help and influence those of our residents that are actually homeowners. So there are a number of programs that are running at the moment. One of them is the that's currently running is the Solar Together scheme, which is a group buying program for solar PV panels and battery storage that actually homeowners can apply for, but also SMEs. And this is a programme that is being run in conjunction with most of the other districts and boroughs in West Sussex. We've actually done a targeted mailing across Crawley to residents. Just under 7,500 letters have gone out, and we've also used lots of other promotional avenues to actually get the scheme promoted. The way it works is that residents who are interested register their interest, and then it goes out to an auction. It's like a bulk buying scheme, and the idea is that if the successful bidder for the auction can actually come and fit, a large number of properties at the same time in one area, then the homeowners can benefit from a much more competitive price for those installations. So we're hoping that the scheme will be successful, and we've had, I'm just looking at the numbers, we've had just over 300 residents have actually registered an interest for the auction. But then what happens is that they will then get, once the auction is complete, they will get a personal quotation and recommendation, which they can then decide to take up if they want to. That all happens by the end of this year. And then if they decide to take up that offer, all installations would be completed by May 2021. If it is successful with residents, we'll obviously monitor that, then we can run the scheme again. They can hold an auction once or twice a year. So it's a good way of promoting that technology. The other thing that we also promote is energy switching. So there were a number of schemes. One is the scheme through the again, as part of a group across West Sussex through Robin Hood Energy. And I know, Chair, you were particularly interested in an update on this, in that Robin Hood Energy, unfortunately, has they have actually been bought by British Gas now. So anybody who's got a tariff, a green energy tariff through Robin Hood Energy, can actually decide whether they want to stay with British Gas or move to a different energy supplier. We also have another energy switching scheme through iChooser. Again, this is like a group buying scheme where there are 3 auctions a year, where people can also try and get reduced energy bills. The third thing I wanted to briefly mention is about the Green Homes grant, and I know that's already been talked about. This is a new government scheme where homeowners can get up to £5,000 towards energy efficient, like insulation, or new heating technologies like air source or ground source heat pumps, or solar thermal heating as well. So as primary measures, and then they can also get additional grant up to that total of £5,000, which can cover up to 2/3 of the cost of the installations, for additional measures like double glazing, if it's replacing single glazing, and things like energy efficient doors. If you're in a qualifying household, you can actually get a fully schemes fully funded, installations fully funded, up to £10,000. That's for people on certain benefits. That scheme actually, the applications for that are open now, but all installations have to be complete by the end of this financial year, which is obviously the end of March. So if anybody's interested in that, and we are going to be promoting it to residents, they would have to act very fast to actually take advantage of that. Another thing that I think Alan mentioned earlier is LEAP, which is our local energy saving advice service, which we also promote, and it's to help residents who are either already in fuel poverty or at risk of fuel poverty with energy saving advice, and with some measures like changes in light bulbs and like draft proofing and things like that, sort of relatively low cost measures, but it's actually an advice service on that. Oh, I've gone a bit too ahead of myself there. There's also another programme called Warmer Sussex, which is a retrofit programme, which is in its sort of infancy in our area. It's a programme across the whole of sort of Sussex and Brighton and Hove. We haven't promoted it greatly yet because they're still trying to put together the whole supply chain for this. But this is like a whole house approach retrofitting programme for homeowners, where an energy advisor will actually come into your home at a fixed cost to write a report on what you could actually do to give a sort of do a deep sort of retrofit for energy efficiency and new heating technologies, and will actually then help to get quotations from the various suppliers and put together a program to actually have that work done. They're trying to build a local supply chain to actually get the suppliers in place to actually be able to offer this service. So in some parts of Sussex, it's a little bit more advanced than it is here, but we're hoping to be able to promote that service quite soon. Then I wanted to just move on to some funding that we're currently applying for, called the Towns Investment Fund, and that actually has a number of strands that are particularly applicable to the what we're talking about today at this meeting. So we're hoping that if we're successful in getting this whole package of funding, part of that will be a £5 million green retrofitting grant fund, which will be for for buildings, for homes across the borough that people can apply for, and this will be over a period of, starting from next April, over a period of 5 years. So that would actually fit in quite well to go beyond the Green Homes grant that's currently being offered by the government. There's also £2.5 million of green tech business grants that would be part of that package. And one thing that Alan also mentioned earlier is about the fact that we need to get people skilled to actually be able to install all these new technologies. And there's also an element of a part of this application is around looking at funding for green construction skills training at Crawley College. Okay, so that's all the updates from me. I'm just going to try and unshare my screen and see if anybody had any questions on that.
Thank you. Clem, do you have anything you would like to add to Louise's presentation?
Thank you, Chair. Just one point, just in terms of timeline, just to advise you that those proposals on the green home retrofitting, the green tech business grants, etc., for the town investment fund, they're currently under consideration by the government. We are due to hear back from the government imminently this month about that, so hopefully we're going to get the green light to proceed with that. We'll be keeping members informed.
Thank you. Thank you. Any councillors who have any questions? I know Tim's light was on.
Thank you. Very quick one. For the energy collective switching, do we make sure it's a green deal? Now, I don't know how green energy can truly be, but sometimes you see some, companies offering you a green tariff, which is usually a bit more expensive, but they say it all comes from, wind power or something like that. Is that something we make sure? Is the collective more about saving residents money, which is still a very good thing, but not necessarily relevant to, and of course, if energy is cheaper, they might use more of it, so it might be directly contradictory to our efforts to reduce carbon output.
I can answer that.
Louise, yes.
Thank you. So with the Your Energy Sussex tariff that was delivered through Robin Hood Energy, that was a green tariff. Unfortunately, that is although that's been taken over by British Gas and they are also running it as a green tariff. We don't currently have a direct replacement for that on offer. The I Choose a collective energy switching is just a bulk buying scheme, so it's more about money saving on your energy rather than it being a green tariff. So that is something that I know that Your Energy Sussex are currently discussing to see whether there is a way that they can replace the tariff with a like-for-like tariff. But we are looking into that at the moment because we would prefer to promote, green tariffs.
Thank you. Tim, did you want to come back with anything? Otherwise,
no, that's fine.
Thank you. I know that I raised the Your Energy Sussex with you, Louise, and I'm very disappointed in what's happened because I chose it specifically because it was a green tariff, and then I've got British Gas, who I didn't want in the first place, telling me I've sort of more or less got to switch to them, and it's going to all automatically change, and I've been very, very disappointed in the way it's been done, but I know it's nothing to do with us, so but very disappointed. Right, the other question I was going to ask is, all of the things that were on your slide, the solar together, all those things, I'm not sure that we promote them enough to our residents, because I didn't really know about them, and I do think we really need to to promote and to try and influence our residents to look at green options and to look and see what we've got available. For example, the solar panels and other things, because I'm quite sure that many of our residents don't actually know that we do this, and I really think we could do more for that. I don't know whether you want to comment, but that's just my feeling. Yeah, okay. So no other questions, nothing else. So thank you, Louise. That was a really interesting update because, as I say, didn't know some of that at all. So thank you very much, both of you, for coming this evening and doing those updates. Those were all the updates. Let me see where I am now. Thank you very much. So that was the last item on the agenda is the panel's discussions for further actions. The recommendations from each of the panel's meetings have been noted, and these will be documented along with those from tonight's meeting. And currently, we've no comments that have been received from any councillors on those recommendations that were issued and circulated on the 29th of September. So if any panel members do have any views or queries, can they be emailed through by next Friday, the 23rd of October? Otherwise, any other comments, otherwise we'll look at those recommendations and then we will briefly pull everything together at our final meeting. And we can discuss anything else that needs to be raised at that point. The final meeting dates we've got lined up are Wednesday the 11th of November, which is the preferred date from most people, I think, and we've also got Thursday the 26th of November. Is there any members of the panel got a problem with either of those two dates? Because I'd quite like to go with Wednesday the 11th of November. Anybody got any objections to that date?
I can't commit to any dates in November at the moment because I'm waiting for my shift pattern for work when I start again. So depending on time, the meetings start, well, I can attend it from 7.
Okay.
So just waffle for half an hour and then I should be okay.
I think it should be a fairly quick meeting because we've got the recommendations already written out. It's just a matter of agreeing them. Gilly, Councillor.
I would prefer Wednesday the 11th. I'm not available at all on that Thursday, the 20, whatever it is.
Okay. So shall we pencil in the Wednesday the 11th then? Councillor Pennington, you've got your camera on.
I was just going to say either date is fine with me, so whichever one you want to go with.
Okay, so we'll go with Wednesday the 11th of November and hope that Tim, you're able to come. Otherwise, we're stuck. Maybe if you could let us know once you have your work dates, and then we. So
even if I am working, I'll just be a little bit. Assuming it's an online meeting, I'll just be a little late.
It will be an online meeting. Can you hold on a second? I'm just having a conversation. Tim, would it be easier if we just say 7 o'clock start then for you on that?
If you'd like to. I mean, I don't want to keep everybody else up, but if you think it's going to be a quick meeting,
I can't see it being a long meeting, so I'm happy to start half an hour later at 7.
Okay.
If that suits everybody else.
That's fine with me.
Sorry, everybody else.
Ali, is that okay with you?
7 PM is fine.
Yep. Louise? And Clem?
Yeah, that's fine.
Clem?
Yeah.
Yes, just to confirm. Yes, Chair, that's fine.
That's perfect. Then we'll say 7 o'clock because then we can have a definite date in the diary, because I know there's quite a lot of meetings in November, so we don't really want to mess it around. That'd be perfect then. So we'll say 7 o'clock on Wednesday, the 11th of November. That'd be great. There isn't anything else. No supplementary agenda tonight. So with the business of the scrutiny panel of the 12th of October 2020 concluded, I now say that the meeting is closed at 7:34 PM. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.